Hi everyone, I want to thank you so much for coming out and listening to my presentation today for my proposal on the decline of honeybee populations. Today we are living in a time where our natural pollinators are really dwindling and the honeybee colony population is rapidly declining all over the country. But specifically in Monmouth County, New Jersey, we're actually in need of a lot more beekeepers because they are very crucial to sustaining the honeybee populations because they're not able to exist naturally anymore due to the pesticides and other issues that we'll be talking about later on today. But before I go on, I want to thank our special guest, Ina Zimmerman, and the Freehold Soil Conservation District for attending today and hearing me out. So on our agenda, we're going to be talking about the problem with the declines in the honeybees, the models of success, and the plan, and the budget. So for our problem, if the honeybee population numbers continue to decline, we can really lose almost all fruits and grain crops that are grown in the United States because 2/3 of them rely on honeybee population. So that's a big chunk to lose if we lose out on our honeybee pollinators. And without fruits, we also lose a big chunk of our nutrients because with those fruits, that's how we get our nutrients. And if we lose out on those crops and the honeybee pollinating them, we don't have any of that. And right now we take that as a luxury, but we really need to make sure we save these honeybees so we can save our crops and save our nutrition, basically. So this chart here is showing the U.S. honeybee colonies declining, and it really starts from 1987 to 1989. That's when it was at its peak height for the population numbers, and it just started declining rapidly throughout the years. And then until around 2009, 2011, that's when we saw a slight increase in the population numbers, but they stayed relatively the same after 2011, and it really never went back up to the numbers that we really want to see today. So our goal is to get back to those population numbers that it was back in 1989, because they are way too low right now. The honeybees are going and dying faster than anyone is really expecting them to, and before we know it, we can lose all of our crops that were grown in the United States because they are so dependent on the honeybee pollination. So some of the crops that we can completely lose forever without honeybees would be apples, almonds, blueberries, cherries, avocados, oranges, and onions. And those are just a few that can completely disappear forever. There are many more crops and fruits out there that can just be lost because they are so heavily dependent on pollination by these honeybees. And apples alone in the US, there are 3/5 of them that come from just Washington State. That is a big chunk to lose if honeybee populations decline just in Washington. We can say goodbye to 3/5 of the apples in the United States. And then for almonds, California produces almost 80% of almonds worldwide. So you can see how drastic it could be just to lose small increments of these honeybee colonies because they are so vital to these productions with these crops. And for blueberries, cherries, avocados, and oranges, they are extremely dependent on the honeybee pollination. 90% of them need the pollination in order to reproduce and grow. And then there are also a few other crops that aren't listed here as well, like cucumbers and pumpkins. But with pumpkins, if we lose out on pumpkins, we lose pumpkin carving for Halloween, we lose pumpkin pie during Thanksgiving. Again, we lose blueberry pie, cherry pie, or even orange juice. So these luxuries, again, like I said, we have them every day at the tips of our fingers. We can grab them from the store, but that might not be the case if we keep losing our honeybees. We won't be able to have these things in the future if we don't start saving them now. So this map is showing the most lucrative food crops in each state, and you can see the vast majority of the crops we grow are grains and fruits. So without the honeybees, we lose, again, 2/3 of those crops that are grown in the United States, and people don't realize how important it is to save these honeybees because they don't notice the strong impact that honeybee pollination has on these crops. We can lose all of them very easily. And in New Jersey here, it says the main crop that we grow are blueberries. So if we're losing honeybee populations in New Jersey, we can say goodbye to blueberries, and that's just the start of it. So a few problems added on to that would be pesticides and the varroa mite. For pesticides, long-term exposure is very, very toxic to even us, but especially the honeybees. It weakens their immune system and doesn't allow them to be protected against parasites and other diseases. But the parasites that we're mainly worried about right now is called the varroa mite, or as some people call the varroa destructor. But it fatally infests bee colonies, and it can take one bee and then it will continue spreading throughout the colony. And this varroa mite prevents the bees from hitting adulthood, so they're not able to develop or reproduce, but because they die off before they're able to get to those points. So we really want to make sure we figure out why this varroa mite is so dangerous to the honeybees and how come it can wipe out complete colonies all at once very quickly. And this varroa mite is one cause of the colony collapse disorder, where these bees leave the hive and just die off with no explanation. We haven't been able to figure it out. So we really want to know why these parasites are so dangerous to the honeybees. So next we're going to be talking about our models of success. Our first model of success are the pollinator gardens. So by planting these pollinator gardens, we have been able to restore some of the natural habitats of the honeybees, and by doing so we can plant bee-friendly flowers which attract the bees into our pollinator gardens. We don't use any pesticides, but then while they're living there in a natural habitat with nothing harming them, they can reproduce and start to increase a small colony at a time. So if we have a small colony in this garden and another colony in another garden, we're slowly but surely increasing these population numbers, which is really, really important. So these pollinator gardens have really helped in the increase in population, but we still need more of them to get to where our goal population number really is. So this picture here shows just a couple of the bee-friendly flowers you can use in your own pollinator gardens if you guys planted them yourself. But the most important and popular flowers that we've seen in these bee-friendly pollinator gardens are the honeysuckle, sunflower, cosmos, and strawberries. And like I said, these honeybees are extremely attracted to these flowers, and that's how we get them into our pollinator gardens to begin with, because they're attracted to these flowers. So then again, they just live off in their natural habitat and just continue to grow and thrive from there. So for our second model of success, it's the biopesticide use. Biopesticides are much safer for humans, livestock, and other wildlife, as well as the honeybees, of course, because we're not using chemicals, it's all natural based. But these biopesticides are also very effective in small quantities, so we don't need tons and tons of biopesticides like we normally would with pesticides because they're so efficient. And they also quickly decompose. Even though it's natural, it's just nice to have it decomposed quicker than just sitting around on the crops, and we get to just reuse it more. So these natural products prevent disease as well for the honeybees, which makes it even safer for them instead of the pesticide use on these farms. And pesticides alone increase pest resistance, which we don't want, but biopesticides don't have that effect because, again, we're just using all natural products. And next on the agenda, we're going to talk about our plan. So the plan is to take 2 test farms from Monmouth County, and we are going to completely forbid pesticides. We're going to use biopesticides only and make it a very safe environment for these honeybees to come to and live on. And it's also going to be safer for the livestock on those farms, as well as the crops being grown for us to consume. But once these farms are successful, we want to continue expanding the biopesticide use all throughout New Jersey, and we want to continue expanding all over the country. And the goal is to really just get rid of pesticides altogether and only use biopesticides because it's so much safer for everyone, and we don't want to have to worry about the harmful chemicals. And once we get those bee populations up, we want to keep them from declining ever again. We just want to keep increasing them, or at least keeping them at an increased level. But again, we do need more beekeepers because they are very, very crucial to the bee populations. And with having beekeepers keeping up those colonies on their own, they're helping out with the population numbers increasing there. And then the biopesticide use is helping increase the populations as well, and the pollinator gardens are also increasing those populations. So everything together is a huge help in increasing these bee populations all over the country. And we do need to fund researchers as well, like I said, to figure out why these varroa mites are so damaging to our honeybee populations, because we want to figure out how we can stop them from wiping out complete colonies. Even if it's just one mite, they can completely wipe out a whole colony of honeybees, and we don't know why. So that is something we really need to look into. And then finally on our agenda is our budget. So for the pollinator gardens, we'd be asking for about $4,000 because each pollinator garden is about $200. We want to start off with 20 pollinator gardens and just continue to grow from there. But then for the beehives, we're also asking for $20,000 because each beehive can range from $700 to $1,000, and we want to start again with about 20 beehives, and then, like I said, just keep on growing after that. And then for the research equipment, we also want to ask for $20,000 because these researchers need the best equipment they can get in order to find correct results to figure out how we prevent these varroa mites from infiltrating our bee colonies and just to keep them surviving while we have them in better conditions without being taken away by these parasites. And then 1 year's worth of biopesticides would be $20,405, and that would be the 1 year's worth of biopesticides for our 2 test farms in Monmouth County. And then last, we would ask for about $5,000, or at least we would be gaining $5,000 from fundraising, which we are very likely to get because the Save the Bees associations always get many donations from people, so we would estimate about $5,000. So this is the budget. $69,405 is where we would start with our plan so that we can have a head start in increasing these bee populations, save the bees and save our natural colonies and get them back to where they were in 1989. That's the main goal. I know it'll take a little bit of time, but at least if we start in New Jersey, we can start somewhere, save our blueberries, and then continue with the rest of the crops, and we won't have to worry about losing our nutrients and the crops that we so desperately need in our everyday lives, or at least use in our everyday lives. We don't have to lose the luxury that we have on the day-to-day basis. So I just want to thank you guys so much for listening to my proposal today. I hope to be working with you guys soon, and if you have any further questions, please reach out to my phone number or my email listed here, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your day.